Hey everybody, it's Jesse from GTA Net and GTA Forums. We've got a trailer analysis video for Trailer 2 for Grand Theft Auto 5 for you today. And first of all, a special shout out to all the forum members who took the time to post things that they found. We didn't have the time to put all of those observations in the video, but we did want to just give a shout out to those of you who were able to contribute, so thanks a lot. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, we've seen a kind of a bird's eye view of Los Santos before we zoom into Michael's property here. A couple of things to note. First of all, the foliage around the area looks much more clean, much more detailed compared to a prior screenshot that was released that featured a couple people playing tennis on the tennis courts down there as a part of the leisure screenshot collection. So that looks vastly improved, which is helpful. Then the other thing, if you look at the bottom left of your screen right here, you will see a gardener going about his work. Looks like he's blowing some leaves or something. From the Game Informer preview, they indicated that a lot of people, if not all people, actually have daily lives. And so you could actually find this guy, follow him around the city from his house in the morning, getting to Michael's house to do his work, and then back home, or if he was going to do any errands. So I think that's just a very neat thing to include in the game. And here we get our first glimpses of both Amanda, who is Michael's wife, and Tracy, who is his daughter. Amanda is described as having a very fiery temperament. In the Game Informer preview, she storms out of the house while yelling at Michael, "If you want to know where I am, check your credit card statements." And Tracy seems like kind of daddy's little nightmare. She's got the interesting star tattoos up on her upper shoulders, and then, of course, the infamous tramp stamp going on. The other thing of note here is Rockstar seems to like to mock Apple with its iFruit brand. I think that's probably going to be an iFruit phone that's docked in that dock there on the counter.
You know, I've been in this game for a lot of years, and I got out alive. If you want my advice...
Now this is an interesting one. If you look at Michael's right-hand shadow right here, you can see that the glass in his hand doesn't have a shadow. Some forum members, when this was pointed out, said, well, it's made of glass and his hand obscures where the liquid would be, etc. But if you put a glass in your hand and look at the shadow, you can still see glass shadow, if that makes sense. This isn't a major thing, but I thought it was interesting enough to point out. So there you have it.
Give this shit up.
Now on this title sequence screen, in addition to getting a nice view of the Los Santos skyline, we also have the first of a bunch of different cars that are showcased in this trailer. I'm going to go through some of what I think are represented here, but I want you to know that there are tons of cars going through this trailer, and I'm not going to stop the video at each and every one. Some of them are very obvious, and some of them are not, but I'll pick out a couple here and there along the way, but understand that I'm not doing a comprehensive review of each car that's listed here. So starting at the far right, you have what I believe to be a Sabre GT, which other forum members have said is a Banshee or a Phoenix, and then that is following a white Esperanto. If we move towards the middle of the screen towards the left, from left to right, it looks like we have a F-150-ish truck, followed by an orange bus, and something that looks like it could be Rockstar's take on maybe the new Camaro, but I'm not 100% sure. It might just be a Sentinel. And then behind that, a yellow Sabre GT. And then if you look further into the background, it looks like we have a Trashmaster and a red bus. And one of our forum members indicated that the LA bus system is coded like some train systems are, where it's like the red line, the orange line, the blue line, and it appears that Rockstar is preserving that here in the game, which I think is pretty sweet.
It's in the guns and crank in this area go through Trevor Phillips Enterprise, or they ain't going.
Here we get our first glimpse of Trevor, who seems to be just about as crazy as he's been described in some of the previews we've been reading. Interesting thing of note here is his tattoo on his neck. It's a dotted line across the front of his neck, and underneath it, it says, "Cut here." That's kind of a macabre way of Rockstar showing just kind of how crazy he is. It seems like he's going to be a fun character to play and a fun character to interact with. I am really excited about getting a chance to play as him. I am also very excited to get a chance to drive this dune buggy that he appears in next. This is a great example of the new flame physics that Rockstar have put into the game. You can see it crawl across the floor here, and then in the next shot you'll also see the flames kind of lick out of the windows after the explosion comes. It's a really neat effect.
I'll swing by and sign the contracts, all right? Just
Okay, bear with me. I had to stop it here because I wanted to point out the fact that Trevor wears a calculator watch. And for some reason, that just tickles me, and I love it. I think it's a fantastic addition to his character. I feel like when I saw it, I thought, of course he would wear a calculator watch still. So, once again, kudos to Rockstar on that.
ignore the bodies.
Can you tell me where Berto Beach House is?
That house right there, with the yellow stairs.
This scene appears to be from relatively early in the game, as it looks like this is probably the first time that Michael and Franklin ever see each other. Later on in the game, Michael is making an introduction of Trevor and Franklin to one another, so it seems like this is probably relatively early on in the game. It appears that this car was just stolen by Franklin. It's the 9F, which is modeled after the Audi R8, but in other previews that we've read, it's indicated that the 9F is a car that Franklin owns. So I don't know if he was fleeing from doing something bad in his own car, or if he's just stolen this car and this is actually how he takes ownership of it for later on in the game. But in any event, the other interesting thing to note is on the license plate, where other cars have San Andreas listed at the top, this actually says SA exempt, which is something that is typically done on license plates for government vehicles. So interesting to see that Franklin drives around in a car that has a government license plate.
I don't care how many cars you own, you ain't changed.
This is a great example of how the interiors have improved. Looks like there's some light mapping going on here, where lighting like ambient occlusion seems to be pre-rendered onto texture maps. This allows for greater visual quality and performance benefits to boot. Also, Franklin's friend seems like kind of a jerk. One of our forum members pointed out that this scene with the car dropping off the back of the car carrier truck comes from the same place as the screenshot from Rockstar that was sent out as a part of the Jobs trio of screenshots. So that was a good eye on the part of our forum member there.
I'm getting my money in the hood. I'm cool.
Cool what? Slinging dope and throwing up gang signs?
And for those of you paying attention at home, this was the other example I was talking about of Apple mockery. We have an iFruit computer which very closely resembles an iMac, even for the contents on its screen. And then if you look at the mouse pad as well, right here, you have the iFruit logo, or at least the iFruit name, located right on that mouse pad.
Your son, James. He's a good kid.
Here we have an interaction between Franklin, Michael, and Michael's son, James, or Jimmy, as I think I'm going to probably call him. We've read through in some previews that in some missions where the characters are together, there are some scripted moments where the character switching will happen automatically. I imagine this whole scene here is most likely an example where, let's say, the player was initially playing as Franklin on the back of the boat, and then when Michael comes racing up here, the system probably switches you over to Michael to drive in the red Sentinel convertible right when Jimmy hits it here. A couple other things to note here. There does appear in this scene to be some camera motion blur going on. It gives me the impression that this might be just for the purposes of the trailer. It would be interesting though if this was something in-game, so I'm hoping that's the case because it'll give a nice visual effect. Also, that tower you see in the background and that archway as well seems to be the Los Santos Airport Tower. It has the very similar look to the LAX airport, so that's another interesting feature.
Hey, let's bounce.
Bounce. We're bouncing now.
I think the interactions between Jimmy and Michael are going to prove to be rather entertaining. Couple things to note here. In the far back, it looks like there's Nutsaki restaurant, or I guess if it was actually in the Japanese, it would be like Nutsaki. Another great attempt at potty humor by Rockstar. And then also, if you look at Jimmy's neck, that neck tattoo and kind of the gangster script has entitled, there. I just think that's a very interesting thing. A lot of references to tattoos, a lot of imagery of tattoos in this game. So I wonder if that's going to continue the more we learn about the game. It seems like there's a copious amount of tattoos to analyze here. Here we have what appears to be a cutscene of Trevor fleeing as his plane is being shot at. And if you look at that slam van in the far back, it's got the skull and wings that belong to the Lost Motorcycle Club from episodes from Liberty City. And if you look far to the right here, looks like we have a couple of chopper motorcycles as well. So I wonder if the Lost Motorcycle Club is going to be making another appearance here in Grand Theft Auto 5. I think it's a safe bet that the three masked individuals here are likely Michael, Trevor, and Franklin. We've read in previews that a lot of the missions where the characters work together have to do with heists and robberies and things of that nature. And so it seems to be a bank vault being blown open, but if you notice, and if you go back and look again, it seems like there are two different doors being blown open here. So this looks like maybe a splicing of two different cutscenes. Okay, it appears we might have a bit of a continuity issue here. So if we think about the last segment where the dog ran, it appears that the dog is chasing this guy here. Stopping for a moment, it looks like this might be an indicator that the Ballas from San Andreas on the PS2 are making a comeback. That's indicated by the purple shoes and t-shirt that this guy has on. In any event, he slides his way across the Emperor here, that's the vehicle, and there's a guy in a reflective vest in the car. Now, if we advance it just a little bit, now we have Cujo here doing his thing, and we notice that once again it's an Emperor car that is the same color, and there's the same guy in the reflective vest, but it seems like the cars are in two different locations. Whereas the first one seemed to be in a warehouse or something like that, this seems to be kind of in an outdoor bus repair depot. So this might just be an editing trick or something to make it look like a continuous shot, but to me it just looks like an error in continuity. Here we have an awesome scene with Trevor parachuting out of the back of a plane after having driven what looks like an Army-issue Mesa Grande out of that plane. Really awesome, likely just a cutscene here, but one thing of note is it looks like there's the potential for us to be flying above the clouds, and if so, that's really neat. You also get a great view of Los Santos down below. One of the other things that we've been reading in previews is that dirt bike races are one of the many side missions that you can undertake, and it looks like it's not just dirt bikes but also quad ATVs racing together, so that's kind of a neat addition. Just a quick stop here to point out the two different tow trucks. One is a smaller, kind of classic looking truck, and the other one is a bigger, more industrial looking one. I'm hoping that in addition to being able to drive these around, that they will actually have working controls so you could potentially pick up cars and drive them around the city.
That's Trevor, my best friend. That's Franklin, the son I always wanted.
Yeah, whatever.
This appears to be one other continuity issue. The scene just prior to this showed what was absolutely a Maverick-style helicopter, but right here we see that it looks like a buzzard. So it looks like this might be two different cutscenes kind of spliced together.
Jesus, your therapist has a lot to answer for.
And who doesn't love piloting a Harrier jet? And in this case, it looks like the Harrier jet type vehicle in the game also has missiles, as we can see it blowing up a police Maverick. This is kind of an interesting nod and a neat way to end this trailer. The three hand positions of the three protagonists mirror the three wise monkeys, the see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. I just think that's a very clever little touch from Rockstar there, so well done.